All right, so how you guys doing? My name is Mike Vannucci. I played, well, first of all, I played my high school ball. I grew up. I spent my life in Long Island, New York, um, and I still reside there right now. I played small Division III, NCAA Division III college football. We came from a little bit of an under-recruited area coming out of high school. I was a little undersized, so I ended up going to the Division III level. I was fortunate enough to have a good career and did some nice things in some all-star games where I just worked real hard. And I was able to go overseas and play ball in Florence, which was the best experience of my life. All the guys I work with now, the college, high school guys, I encourage them to get over to Europe and try and play some ball and experience some new cultures because it was the best experience that I had. I was talking to coach before. I was unable to make it over to Germany because of the way the season runs a little later. It interfered with the coaching. But right now, I spent some time at the NCAA Division II level as a receivers coach, special teams coach. But primarily, I've been at the high school level for the past 4 or 5 years. And I also run my own wide receiver academy, which has really been the bulk of what I've been doing. I've been able to work with a bunch of different guys at some pretty high levels, ranging from pro all the way down to youth. And it's truly a passion of mine to coach and help keep people grow, not only as wide receivers, as football, as young kids as well. So that's a little bit about myself. Here's some information. I'll talk football anytime. So if you guys ever want to reach out, please don't hesitate. The presentation I'm going to give today is really about having a plan and understanding how to win every route versus every coverage. It'll be slightly abbreviated because this is quite an extended presentation, so we won't get to all the slides. If you see something on here that you'd like to dive deeper into or something wasn't on here and you'd like to discuss, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So just the presentation agenda. We will not be going over the visualization. We will go over indicators and what they mean. We'll go over stance and start. We'll go over line of scrimmage and winning at the line of scrimmage with press release. We will not go over second level release today for the sake of time. We'll not dive deep into the stem. We will go into short 90s, which are in or out breakers, shorter in or out breakers. We'll go into long 90s, which are our deeper in or out breakers. We'll talk about winning the hitch, talk about winning the curl, winning the comeback, winning the slant, the post, and talk about a rocker step a little bit. So you're going to hear me say all the time throughout this presentation, no indicators. And all that means is really we're not providing anything for the DB to break on our route or have an idea that a break is coming prematurely. So, for example, we have a 6-yard out versus a high cover defender. We don't want to give him anything to cover this route. No sudden change of height. That doesn't mean like the smooth transition from acceleration to max velocity, where guys will gradually rise up as they're transitioning. It's just an abrupt change of height before we drop. A change in stride, and that includes arms or legs because they're connected. Okay, when we run, we're connected from contralateral shoulder to hip, contralateral lat to glute. So our arms and legs are connected. So no change in stride up until our break point. Our eye discipline. So obviously the caveat to this is when we have a double move, we like to use our eyes as a weapon to we look, he looks type of deal. But when we're not, we want to look right through the defender. I don't want to look at the ground where I'm cutting. That's considered an indicator. It'll let the DB know that a break may be coming. And then we're always a vertical threat. Our biggest advantage as wide receivers is that we can threaten vertical, right? Like the object here is to score points. If we present ourselves as a vertical threat where this guy might think we might be trying to go deep on him, the world is ours because we know where we're going and he does not. So the most important thing here is that we make everything look like a vertical route until it's time to break. Some stance and start, 5 commandments. To me, the stance and start, and I'm going to say this, and it does not mean it's not important, but what I mean is it's the most overcoached thing in football. And what I mean by that is coaches, we try and fit guys into these pegs, these areas, when it's really, does it look good? Are they explosive? And are they comfortable? Are the answers we need to ask ourselves. To expect Julio Jones and Julian Edelman to look the same in their stance is outrageous. They don't look the same. Their legs aren't the same length. Their femurs aren't the same length. Their torsos aren't the same length. Their stance should not look the same, okay? What's explosive and comfortable for Julian Edelman might not be what's explosive and comfortable for Julio Jones. And that's the same for different guys on every team. So the 5 commandments we look for, we're comfortable in our stance. We're explosive driving out. We're prepared for combat when somebody walks up on us. No energy leaks, so I'm not dropping down to drive out. I'm not rising out to drive out. Everything is vertical. My front foot's not leaving the ground to go forward. And then we're a sprinter. So when we have access and there's no press coverage, up until break point or up until there's somebody in our stem, we are a sprinter. So it should mimic that of a 100-meter sprinter coming out of the blocks. Obviously, we don't have blocks, but we're trying to mimic those joint mechanics as best as possible. So here's an example of a good stance, okay? There are certain things we look for, and then we kind of let the guys kind of play around with it and find their comfortability. First one is the toes are dug into the ground. We don't want this heel flat down. We want the toes dug in. The toes are extended into the ground. Back knee is bent, okay? A lot of time we'll see this back knee kind of be a little closer to straight, and the first thing they do is dip down into the stance to drive out. Wasted movement. So we need this back knee bent. Arms tight to the body, okay? Somebody walks up on us. We might put them up in front. Really, they can have them wherever they want as long as they're not resting on their thigh. That's the one thing I try to get guys out of, because the first thing they're going to do is take them off their thigh and then move them. It's just wasted movement. Chest over knee, nose over toe. And ideally, if we can, we might run into a little ankle mobility issue here, but if we could get a positive shin angle, meaning the shin is a slightly over the foot, the knee is slightly over the middle of the foot, that'd be great. Some guys don't have the ankle mobility to do that. If they can't, it's something you can work towards, but don't fit a square peg in a round hole. We need majority. I don't like giving guys numbers for the percentage of weight on the front foot. Majority of the weight is on this front foot, so we can just roll right off of this. That comes back to these toes being dug in the ground. I could push the ground away and roll right off this front foot. Now here's just another example of DeAndre Hopkins. Could have a little bit more bend in the knee, but there is some bend. Chest over knee, nose over toe, hands ready for combat because Jalen Ramsey's walked up on him. It's pretty similar. Like I said, they're not exactly the same. They're two different human beings, okay? What's comfortable for DeAndre might not be comfortable for Mike Evans, but they look similar enough. They're checking all the boxes. And then here's just a sprinter stance, like driving out the blocks. Like this is in a perfect world, right? Like a route is a sprint until we break, right? Obviously, there's a difference here because there's perception reaction, right? We're seeing what's going on in the defense. We're reacting to what's going on in the defense. But biomechanically, in a perfect world, we would be mimicking a sprinter. Now, football players don't have the same sprint mechanics, but it's something we can strive for. This is what we'd like to look like when we're kind of, in our vertical stem. Now, your 16-year-old kid on the youth program isn't going to look like this, okay? But the closer we can get to it, the better. One thing I want to discuss that I think gets bastardized a little bit is you hear coaches say, stay low coming out of the blocks, okay? There's a caveat to this. Now, he has a good forward lean here. But the thing about his lean is it's straight line, okay? Shoulder, hip, knee, ankle, in line. He is not bent at the waist. So a lot of coaches will tell, stay low, stay low, stay low. But how are you staying low? When we just bend over at the waist, we're losing energy. That's actually slower than them being a little bit higher, but the joints being stacked, okay? So just bending over at the waist does not make somebody faster. Understanding the concept of these joints being aligned and pushing the ground away to cover ground out of our stance is super important. This is something that we can really dive deeper into. And if you're interested in it, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And then here's Julio kind of putting it on display. He's got a go ball from the slot. He's really running a diagonal, and he knows the thing's not coming until down the field. He has access. He is shot out of a cannon. Okay, he looks like as close to a sprinter as you could get. That's what we're looking for. So now we'll move to winning at the line of scrimmage. So one thing is always have a plan. Okay, no matter what, like you come out there, you assess where your cover defender is. You have a plan. Okay. On the contrary to that, that plan is always like you always got to be able to react to his reaction to your plan. And that just comes with repetition. But we come out there, this cover defender's inside press, have a plan for what you're going to do to get to your route. We're counter punchers. So at the line of scrimmage, we never shoot our hands first. Okay. We move our feet, he shoots, we shoot. And we'll get to some film and discuss that. And then some rules of thumb, which are not, these are not always, okay, but it's if he's patient, we want to go. And if he's aggressive, if we could kind of rock him to sleep a little bit and play around with tempo, that's something we'd like to do. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a speed release. This is less is more, okay? Like we want to go. So I have a cover defender opposite leverage of where I want to go. For example, I have a go ball, I have a vertical route, and he's inside press. Or I have a guy head up who's a little bit slower than me. I don't want to waste any time with them. Okay, I want to just, you could bounce go. You could go right off the ball. Whatever you feel is necessary. We give our guys two options. They could come to balance or they could go right off the ball, and we'll take a look at both of them in a second. Versus soft press, we might have to eat up a little bit of space before we execute the speed release. Versus hard press, we want to go right away. We want to get width and depth. And this is often paired with some type of blade, which we'll get into as well. We got a question here. Let me get to the question real quick. Crossing the hands at the line of scrimmage. That's the one thing. It's the one thing that I try and hammer away from guys. Other than that, they have a lot of freedom. The only reason I don't like this is the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to pull them out, and it's just wasted movement. And then teaching my players to sprint 100%. For the most part, yes. There's obviously caveats to changing tempos, like working a hezzy, working a stutter. But you're not at max velocity within 12 yards anyway, right? Like you're still accelerating. So to me, like we're in attack mode the whole way. If you got an 18, 20-yard comeback, you might be getting close to that max velocity range. Being like to me, if you're telling guys to be in full speed, accelerating and telling them to not run full speed, like work the break point better, rather than tell them not to attack. That's our biggest weapon. Is our vertical stem. So here's here. It's Brandon Cook. He's working on Sean Smith. Smith bigger, slower corner than Cooks. Cooks flies. Okay. So here he is working the speed release. Come to balance, bring both feet together, and then just get width and depth as he exits this thing. Now, little difference here in the NFL compared to what we do. Ideally, we'd like him to kind of get vertical here and not get on the quarterback's grass a little bit more, but he has Drew Brees throwing to him, so he can put it wherever he wants. So he's allowed to get a little bit more width than our guys. But this is like I don't want to play any games with this guy. This is a speed release. Bounce, go. Width and depth, and let's play ball. So this is DB has opposite leverage to where we want to go. For example, inside leverage on a go ball, slower DB. This is something we'd like to work, and this is all stuff you see in film. Here it is from the all-22 at the bottom of the screen. You'll see him slightly dip that shoulder here. He gives him his back, right? So he gives him his back rather than keeping his shoulders square to the end zone where he might be able to latch on. He gets his chest to the sideline a little bit as he kind of exits this speed release. Here's another example who's Julio at the top. Now this is Julio going right away. So that was a come to balance or a split release where we bring both feet together. This is just going right away. We call this an immediate. So he's just out. He's just out of the gate, no wasted movement. I'm just getting width and depth now and outrunning you. And we'll get a better view of it in a second. So speed release is a big one we like to work. So here he is. width and depth, and it's a foot race. Here's another example. Brandon Browner, this corner's a physical guy. He's not as linearly gifted as Allen Robinson is. Allen Robinson just wastes no time with him and just goes. Does a nice job with the combat, but wastes no time at the line of scrimmage. Those are our speed releases, okay? Now here we have our jabs. This is where we're looking to move a defender, okay? Move or freeze a defender. Very similar to a crossover in basketball. Foot, hip, shoulder, and head all have to move together. They're all in sync. When we're working off the inside edge of our foot, we're shifting our weight, transferring our weight from hip to hip. We said it's similar to basketball. Here's a good example of it. You're going to watch him move his jab here. It's a crossover. Foot, hip, shoulder, head. So if we rewind this, foot, hip, shoulder, head all together. Okay, we'll see it again. Foot, hip, shoulder, head all together. And we're going to get into some jabs here. So here's a single. He's eating up some space. So the amount of space we eat up is based on how much cushion is between our cover defender and ourselves. You're going to watch Doug Baldwin work a single right now. Bang. Foot, hip, shoulder, head all together. Here's Paul Richardson, number 2 in the trips right now. Eats up a little space. Foot, hip, shoulder, head. Allen Robinson, number 2, he's in the slot. Single jab. Everything together. Foot, hip, shoulder, head. Now, super important to notice where he executes this move. If I get on this guy's toes too much, especially at our level, especially at the NCAA and Europe level, like, we're going to get snatched. If I execute this move right here, like, his hands are in my breastplate immediately. So it's important to give yourself a little bit of space here. I like to say arm's length when I execute these jabs for this guy to miss. So he can't just latch onto me. And here's one more. Van Jefferson, Senior Bowl one-on-ones. Does a really nice job at this double jab at the line of scrimmage. Foot, hip, shoulder, head all together. Really nice job. Now, I'm not, so some coaches see it differently than me. When it's press coverage, the false step thing is out the window for me. And some other coaches I've spoken to feel the same way. Like, it's very unnatural to get a good single jab from just back here. Like, you'll often see guys, and I challenge you to go watch some higher level guys do it. They're going to kind of take a plyo or gather step here to help them work this jab. They'll come to balance. It's really them just setting up their jabs better. So, like, to me, like, there's no such thing as false stepping versus press. We look at it as more as they're setting up their jabs. It's different. And I really challenge you, like, go back and watch some Devontae Adams film, some Keenan Allen film. They're probably 2 of the best at the line of scrimmage. They do it every single time. So here's another release we work. So stretch jabs and speed are the 3 big ones we'll work. So stretch, we use it to pull or move a defender. Smaller, like controlled shuffle or choppy steps, we may gain some ground linearly based on where our cover defender is in relation to the line of scrimmage. We're really looking to reset the line of scrimmage or bring the line of scrimmage to him, and it's usually paired with some type of jab. Could be paired with the speed when we're releasing outside. So here's Julio. He's working a stretch, controlled shuffle, single jab back into the slant. The big thing here is that we're not hopping, we're not galloping. It's really like we like to call it a controlled shuffle, because our feet are always in the ground to be ready to work that jab back inside or double jab back outside. Willie Snead, number 2, in the slot up top. Stretch, single jab, slip underneath. And then it works both ways. So here's Curtis Samuel. He's going to stretch him inside to win outside. Really just resets the line of scrimmage. Stretch him, jab, and leave him. Really nice job shedding. We're going to get into the shed, I think, within the next few clips. Let's run that full speed for you guys. And then one more, so he stretches him in to go out. So there's a million ways to work it. Our job as receivers coaches is present these guys with these tools, explain to them when to use them, why to use them, and then let them create their movement toolbox, providing them with live scenarios in practice. That way in the game, they've seen it 1,000 times. The big thing is, here is the tools. We're expanding your toolbox. They understand when and why to use them. We won't get into hezzy. We'll touch on the dive real quick. I think it's a really cool release. Another tool in the toolbox. It's an immediate horizontal threat. So it's similar to a diamond release, just opposite. We're threatening with full strides. We're trying to get this defender's hip to flip in the direction we're going. We can reestablish our vertical stem or get right out to our break, and we'll dive deeper into that in a second. So here's Adam Thielen at the bottom of the screen. He's going to dive flat inside to get the cover defender to flip his hip, and he slips outside of him. Something to note of this is a run play. Thielen is doing what we call stealing a release. He's gathering information on his cover defender on a play that there's no pass, and he's storing it to the rest of the game. What works against this guy? What is his tempo? How quick is he to jump things? This is all stuff he's gathering. But he's working a dive release here where he drives inside. When the defender flips, he slips underneath him. Okay, we'll run that full speed. And then here's another example of it with Deebo Samuel. So that last one, Thielen got right out to his route. There was really no vertical stem after the dive release. Here, Deebo's going to get back on his vertical stem to an outbreaker. He's going to dive inside, threaten full speed, get this DB to flip his hip, and he'll slip underneath him. Slip, back to a vertical stem, and roll it to the out. Dive, slip, vertical, roll. Big thing here is that there is a threat. We are posing a threat here. I am posing a threat, especially in man coverage. When you give some type of immediate horizontal threat, like those shallow crosses, those are hard to cover in man. Especially like you see here, Shaquille Griffin's got outside leverage. Like he's got to turn and run with this thing. So the big thing here is that we're really threatening horizontal. So let's get into the hands at the line of scrimmage. We view it as counter punchers. We had mentioned that before. When he shoots, we shoot our hands. The DB is going to shoot his hands, at the exception of the true hard jam, which is very rare in football right now, with the exception of those bullshit prospect camps where kids are just slapping the shit out of each other at the line of scrimmage. The DB's hands are his last resort. So you move him off his landmark, his hands are coming every single time. So we work a slap chop, a shed technique, and a blade technique. And we're going to get into all of them right now. So here's just an example of counterpunchers, right? So he shoots his hands, we shoot our hands. He shoots his hands, we shoot our hands. We never shoot first. We never shoot first. We force him to shoot his hands, and then we get him off. Here's an example of it. Okay, DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best guys with his hands in the game. We move the cover defender. We force him to shoot. We shoot our hands and get him off. Okay? So our slap chop, this is our jab cross. This is what we call our jab cross. Okay? We like to relate things to boxing because we say counter punchers. We're looking to strike elbow to shoulder here on the cover defender. And the big thing here that I don't think gets coached enough is when I'm at the line of scrimmage, like my eyes are on what I'm trying to hit. Okay? I don't need to look past the cover defender because if I can't get his hands off me, it doesn't matter what's past him. So as I'm working this, like I'm looking at what I'm hitting. I'm trying to strike him. If I miss, I'm in deep shit. So here's an example of Mike Williams to the left of your screen. It's the outside receiver. He's going to stretch. Here comes the slap with this right hand, and the chop comes over the top. We'd really like to be more physical than he is here. Because if we are physical, we're really going to push this guy behind us. Slap, chop. We'd really like to come down on that arm. You'll see here he's a little passive at the point of contact. Slap, chop. I want to come down hard on that and almost rake him by me. Dealing to the right of your screen. Same concept here. Slap, chop. Does a nice job. Now, bit of a swim here. It's going to happen. We'd like to shoot this thing tighter and close the space here between my arm and his arm. And I come, if you look at me, I'm slapping, I'm coming right over the top of it. This is going to happen. Sometimes, ideally we're eliminating that space. And this is a two-hand shed, two-hand white, two-hand chop. So our rule of thumb is he shoots two, we shoot two. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Does a nice job getting the arm off. So our shed wipe, this is my favorite. This is the one I prefer because you get a lot of guys now that try to latch onto that shoulder pad. They try and shoot to that shoulder pad wide. This is what we call our uppercut. So we're up, out, and back, just trying to get that arm off of our shoulder pad. We're shedding away from where we want to go. Devontae Adams, a great guy to study with for this. He's probably one of the best of it. It's really second nature for him. And here's a clip of it. So he eats up space, jab, and then here's his shed. So he's up, out, and back. And you're going to see he does such a good job of it. He actually pushes the DB behind him and creates that separation. So this is really, to me, when he shoots high on us. Up, out, back, shut him behind. Another example here with Michael Gallup. There it is. It doesn't have to be perfect every time. Just get the arms off. Just get the arms off. And then let's go play ball. And then here's a good rep of Jordy Nelson to the right of your screen. I like this rep a lot because you see him do it at the line, and then you see him do it late because this is not just a line of scrimmage move. Like this is in stem as well. When he's trying to latch on and we're in our vertical stem, we're trying to separate down the field. Like this is still, it's all the way down the field. So there's the first shed, and then here's the next shed, and it doesn't stop. Anytime that arm gets shot to the shoulder pad, we're getting it off. It's never okay for him to have his hands on us. And then here's our blade. This is our main dodge, okay? So like our bob and weave. We're eliminating our shoulder pad. It's really what we're doing. So when I execute my release, my shoulders aren't parallel to the goal line anymore. I'm trying to turn that chest to the sideline and dip my shoulder a little bit. So now when he shoots this hand, it's not breastplate, it's not shoulder pad, it's on my back. It's on like my scapula area, pushing me into my route. So bob and weave. It's what we call our bob and weave, okay? We're eliminating what he's trying to strike. We're eliminating what he's trying to strike. So here's AB working an inside fade here from the slot, bottom of your screen. Okay, hand on the back, chest to sideline, slight dip. So now if I run this, I'm going to eventually overtake him. Okay, you see it? And it's sudden, right? I'm not doing it right off the ball. I'm eating up space. When he's about to shoot, I work it. Same thing. Very sudden. Just eliminate what he's trying to strike. And here's the best one. Eliminate what he's trying to strike. Now, you don't have to do it this well, right? Like, this is to expect your 17-year-old kids, your 19-year-old kids, your kids that practice 2 times a week to look like Antonio Brown is negligent. But it doesn't have to be like this every time. And then, you know, we're not really trying to break down this play, but I had one person in a presentation ask me, well, why isn't he stacking, right? Like, why isn't he stacking? I got the counter punch to answer that question over from Joe. I got the counter punchers from Coach Liebs, the guy from Sideline Hustle, but I paired them with the boxing terms themselves. I took what he did and kind of ran a little deeper with it, because I think guys can visualize it better when they pair it to something. So I got the counter puncher idea from Coach Liebs from Sideline Hustle, and then the uppercut, the cross, all that shit. I had just kind of came up with playing around with some things. Yeah, so like he's not stacking here because he's getting away from the cover 2 safety. Like if he stacks this, and you'll see in a second, his head is taken off. Right? Like this, they're trying to fit this in the hole. Like not everything has to be the way it's supposed to be. Like there's reasons for everything. So like to sit here blindly and say, well, he should stack that. Take a look at the totality of the play. That's a little tangent. But yeah, excellent play. All right, so now we're going to get into the nuance of route running. This is like my favorite stuff in the world. Not that other stuff is unimportant. So we're going to talk about short 90s. These are short in or out breakers. First cushion versus access, less is more. Like we tell our guys, you come out, you have a 6-yard out, your guy's at 8 and bailing, or he's at 10 and squatted. Like it's routes on air for us. It's routes on air. The only way this guy makes a play on this ball is if we provide him one of those indicators that we spoke about, change in stride, change in height, eyes staring where we're going. Threaten vertical, roll it over. It's routes on air. Versus press, we like to work an opposite release. So let's say I come out and I have a 5-yard in. He's hard inside leverage. I might work something quick to try and take back the inside leverage. He's squatted in there. I will take the outside release rather than waste time to get in there. I'll take the extra time that I just saved at the line of scrimmage, work a throw by at the top of my route. We're going to dive into it. Same side release. So now I got an in breaker. He's outside press. I'll take the inside. I'll fight pressure with pressure. I'll lean in and give a flipper to separate flat. We'll also talk about a fake throw by, but that happens more so at longer depths. We really want to limit a loss of speed and change in height because of the short route depth here. So here's an example of Deshaun Jackson. He's got cushion out his route depth. He's running a quick out, 6-yard out. He's just going to attack and roll this thing over. And we're not going to get into the break points a ton here. We're just going to talk about our plan and what we want to execute. I have another presentation about break points, which we can get into another time. But where you just want to work, cut and roll this thing over, less is more. Spend as little time on the ground as possible. You'll see guys slam their foot in the ground on speed cuts, and there's a time for that. But when there's this much space, man, just roll that thing over and let's get our head out. Whip the chin, glue the chin to the shoulder, rip the elbow back, and let's roll this thing over and let's pitch and catch. This is routes on air for us. Absolutely. Another example of a quick out. This is from early 2000s. This is not new stuff. Nobody's reinventing the wheel here. Vertical, 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 vertical. Arms keep running through. His arms run through his break on his speed cut. It's the biggest thing here. He's going to rip his right elbow back. He's going to rip his right elbow back after he rolls off his left foot. You'll see the right elbow ripping back. Chin to shoulder. Ball's on. Just attack, vertical, roll. And then just talking about when, we're condensed especially. But anytime we got high and outside, we want to just try and spray it. And what we mean by spray is There's no real vertical stem here. It's just a straight line at his outside shoulder. Like I'm attacking. That's my vertical stem here. It's not me getting width and then going. It's me in a straight line to it. And then same concept. There's cushion. I'm going to attack and roll. Shoulders and hips stay square, present the vertical threat, attack and roll. Same thing here at the top of your screen with Doug Baldwin. Less is more. I'm telling you, sometimes football is really this easy. Especially you get this shit to the boundary, like condensed formation, you usually get somebody walked off high and outside. Like football's really this easy sometimes. And then one more, Julio down at the bottom. And then here's our pressure with pressure, okay? So now I get route leverage. I have an in breaker, so Edelman has an in breaker here. First press, he takes the inside release. He's going to lean in and separate. The big thing about this is we work flat, and he's forced to round over the top of us as we give him a little flipper and lean and separate. We definitely want to lower our pad level here. We want to be underneath him when we execute this. Same concept here. Slot receiver, takes outside release on an outbreaker, breaks it flat off. Pressure with pressure. So that's a pressure. I have route leverage, and he's hipped with me. I'm releasing to the left. I release left. I release left, and then I have an outbreaker to the left. This is pressure with pressure. It's the same side release tool. We'll get into the throw by, which is an opposite release tool. So you present this to your kids, your guys, like when I release same side, what are my options? And they should be able to rattle them off. I release opposite. What are my options on this route? They should be able to rattle them off. You should be able to rep them in practice. We'll get into some of the minutia of that towards the end of the presentation. And then here's just an example of just like leaning, pressure with pressure, and separating. Here's Odell. Sorry for my disgusting drawing. Lean, separate. I know it's more of a post angle, but you get the concept from it. We're going to get into throw bys here in this part, in the long 90s, because it's the same whether it's a short 90 or long 90. But long 90s versus cushion, same concept. Speed cut, attack, less is more. Let's roll this thing over. Versus high and outside, same thing, spray and speed. We're looking to capture that outside shoulder with our stem, with our spray. We'll talk about if we can't capture that outside shoulder, what is our plan? What are we going to do? And then when we would snap and drop our weight, work that false acceleration. So we had just went over speed cut, so we're not going to beat a dead horse. Nothing changes for this. It's just that it's a deeper cut. So you might have to sink a tiny bit more than on a quick out, but we still don't want to spend excess amount of time on the ground. The more force you put into the ground, the more time you spend on it. The more time you spend on it, the longer you're in your break when you don't need to be. So here he is, right? So this is his cover defender's not even on the screen. He's number 3 in trips. So oftentimes, either 2 or 3, if it's not man, is going to end up getting coverage from the sky. So he's not even on the screen right now. So Thomas does a great job. Shoulder square, hips square, making this look exactly like it's vertical, full stride. We hit play, and he's just going to roll right off that inside foot, chin to shoulder. Less is more, right? Like this is, I tell my guys all the time, like once you understand and execute the speed cut properly, you're like, oh my goodness, like this is the easiest route to run in football. Because you really do nothing. You run and roll. The one problem guys have with this is they get the notion that I have to get flat right when I stick my right foot in the ground, right? So they'll kind of slam it and they'll get stuck. The whole point of the speed cut is there's cushion, so I'm able to gain ground. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to one-step or speed cut this. If I had to break flat, I'd have to break down a little bit. But since I'm able to gain ground, that's why I'm able to speed cut. Call it a speed cut because you don't lose speed throughout the whole break, throughout the whole route. You don't lose any speed. You just run and roll it over. No indicator. This is routes on air. Here's another example on an in-breaker is DJ Moore, top of your screen, working a dig, frozen right before his speed cut. We'll discuss real quick why some teams prefer to square cut in-breakers, but he does a nice job rolling this thing over. Yeah, so some teams, a lot of guys, like I get guys that come back from college all the time, and they're like, yeah, we square our in-breakers a lot of the times. Because you'll see two guys here pissing in the same Coke bottle with the speed cut, right? Like, this is tight. Now, if he breaks this down, there's a little bit more time for that to clear out. But I'm all for
Can you hear us, Coach?
get cut off prior to this, Coach? Are we good here?
Yes, we're good here.
Okay, awesome. So same thing, DJ Moore, rolling over. Like the speed cuts don't really change, just the velocity of our movement, because we're more vertical in our stem. We're going to be at a higher running velocity, so we might have to sink our hip more so than on a quick. But versus cushion, like we're just running and rolling this thing over. And then here's an example of a poor speed cut, just leaning early and just giving indicators. So you're going to see the receiver at the top of your screen. He starts to roll over on his outside foot and starts leaning towards his route early. And you're going to see the DB drive it before he even gets out of his break. So here he is. He starts rolling off his outside foot. He gives that indicator that we're talking about. Shoulders aren't square anymore. The DB's already out of his break before we get out of ours. That's just the stuff we're trying to avoid. I'm still not out of my break. DB's undercutting. So, shoulders stay square, attack and roll. He starts rolling off the outside. That's an indicator it's going the other way. But outs versus cushion, ins versus cushion, attack and roll this thing over. If he rolls this thing over on his next step without leaning, it's an easy completion. And then one thing we like to play around with at the top of our speed cuts, we like to work a rocker step. This is a little bit more advanced. If you're going to work it, you want to kind of work it slow, low level first. We like this when he's high, but he has route leverage. So he's outside leverage higher than my route depth. So he's got route leverage. He's outside. I'm running an outbreaker. I just want to give him something. So he's going to stick, Devontae's going to stick his left foot in the ground to pull his cover defender this way before he rolls back out this way. Like so. And then here's another example of it. Michael Pittman down at your screen, USC. It's so sudden, so subtle. It's just a little. Here's his left foot coming right now. He's going to stick his left foot in the ground and watch the DB. Pulls him inside before he rolls over. Very, very subtle. It doesn't have to be much. Pittman didn't get the ball. I'm not really sure why. And then the spray, like high and outside, we're spraying again. Like no difference from the quick outs. It's just the depth is different. Okay, no difference from the quick outs. We're attacking and we're rolling. This is a damn good cornerback that Kenny Stills is working on right now. Make it look like a vertical. Ball's on time. It's routes on air. Doesn't matter who the DB is. AB, top of your screen. Spray deep. Same thing. Very similar to the quicks we saw. Capture this outside shoulder. Spray. Roll. And then another tool we use. So this is this builds off the spray. So now he's high and outside. I try and attack and capture that outside shoulder, but he just expands now. Okay, he just expands. I'm trying to expand with him. He expands with me. I'll just stick my right foot in the ground now, get back vertical before I roll it over. So to talk you guys through a situation, we use this. High and outside leverage. I got a deep out. I'm trying to capture that outside shoulder, but he just keeps weaving and expanding with my spray. Well, then I'll just pressure step myself back vertical. It'll force him to flip vertical, and then I'll roll it back over. Same thing. And then here's an example of a square 90. So now, like, either scheme says, you know, we're square breaking this. Like, this is for timing purposes, for scheme purposes, for concept purposes. You know, you have a short end underneath it. You don't want the deep end to be on top of the short end. Square cuts. This is a good example of he's tight to my break. If I roll this, I might gain too much ground and collision. And we're going to talk about it in a second. So if I try and speed cut this right here, I'm gonna run right into him. I'm gonna run right into him. So when he's tight to my depth, snap. So we want to weight drop. I want to pull myself down, work that trigger step or snap down. Like I said, we're not getting into break points today. We're just talking about tools, expanding the toolbox and when to use it. But really, we want to work that snap down or trigger step, hip sink, nose over, arms stay tight. Snap, break flat out. Another example. So here's a in breaker from inside. So the outside in breaker has to square cut. Same thing. Attack, no indicator. I am threatening vertical, shoulder square, hips square. Snap. So this is freeze right before his trigger step or snap down. Hip sink, nose over, arms tight, run out of it. So now we got our deeper 90s versus press. So our same side release tools. If we beat them off the ball, and we could stack them, we'll work a hip shift or a rocker step. We'll work our pressure, which we already saw. We'll work a peak to speed, which we're not going to go over today, and we'll work a fake throw by. If we take an opposite release, so for example, I have an out and I take an inside release, or I have a dig and I take an outside release. If we can stack them, we will take a rocker or hip shift, or we will throw by. So opposite release tools, same side release tools. So here's Davante Adams at the bottom of your screen. He is working an outbreaker, and he is going to take an inside release. So this is an opposite release tool. He uses the throw by. DB shoots his hand. DB shoots the arm to latch. We are throwing by at the elbow to shoulder. If the DB were to keep that hand down and we were to be hipped, we're throwing by where the butt meets the low back. Okay, we'll let that run at full speed. So he has an outbreaker, takes the inside release. It's a really nice way to kind of play around with your splits, like a good way to run an out from the bottom, of, like with the plus split here from the bottom of the numbers. Dive inside, throw by. Mari Cooper, top of your screen. This will be from the all 22, and then we'll get it from the broadcast. Top of your screen, he dives inside. Vertical, 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 throw by. Underneath. We'll get a better view of it here. Okay? Outbreaker, deep outbreaker, takes the opposite release, dives inside. Okay, also to understand, like when I have a deep out from the outside receiver, it's very hard for the QB to throw this thing if I take an outside release. Okay, very hard. There's not much room. You know, if I get expanded at all, it's really, the ball is not going to come. It's a nice way to run deep outs from the outside. Kind of, you get some grass back by taking the inside release. You throw by and slip underneath it. And then one more here. Here's D-Hop taking an inside release, throwing by at the top, arms latched. And we'll get a better view of it in a second. Now, this is sequential in the sense of I'm going to slightly drop before I throw by. Slightly drop before I throw by. Arm is latched, so here comes the arm from Cheeto. Throw by at the shoulder. Opposite release tool, okay? Now, important to note, this is when he's dominant, okay? So if I were to beat him off the ball and I have a step or two on him, I cannot throw by anymore, okay? Because by the time I drop, he's going to collision. This is with him hipped or dominant with a half a step or more ahead. So now we just spoke about when he's dominant. So opposite release tool when he's dominant is our throw by. When we're dominant, so we have a step on him, we have a half stack, we beat him at the line. We're going to work a hip shift. So that's really anything with my hip, shoulder, and head that can pull him opposite of where I want to go. So here's Cole Beasley. He's working an in breaker. He's going to give the DB something to make him believe that he's breaking out. It could be a peak of the head and shoulders. It could be a slight, like a little rocker. It's very subtle. It's very subtle. So now the throw by is out here. I can no longer throw by this cover defender. I need to give him something opposite. Okay, there's the other thing you can do, which is a little bit more rare, is like a tight wrap where you just roll this thing over and try and really finish negative. I prefer the hip shift. From experience, guys seem to pick up on it a little bit more. Here's another example of Adam Thielen in the slot here. Very subtle. Bang, bang. Just give him something. You know, you really only need to freeze him. But just give him something to make him think you're going there for a half, not even a half a second, a tenth of a second. A tenth of a second. And then this one is even less. Here's DJ Moore. Now notice, guys, they're kind of changing their tempo here so they can execute this. Just a slight lean to the in. So same side release tools. So those are our opposite release tools. Okay, opposite release. So I have an in breaker and I release outside. Is he dominant? Is he higher than me or hipped? If the answer is yes, we're throwing by. If the answer is no and I'm half stacked or I'm stacked or I'm ahead of him, I'm going to give him a hip shift to pull him opposite. Now, same side release tool. We spoke about pressure with pressure. Here's another one. This is a little bit more advanced. It's a fake throw by. So this is same thing. He's hipped or dominant. I will fake like I'm throwing by and then break the direction I was already in. So I have route leverage here to the left. I have an in breaker to the left. I'm going to fake like I'm throwing him by. This DB is going to think I'm going to the right. I'm really breaking back where I was. A little bit more advanced stuff here. Here's Jerry Jeudy. Okay, he's got an in breaker. He has route leverage. The difficult part of this is not the skill itself. It's the internal clock. Guys really tend to rush this. They really tend to rush it. To throw by first. Throw by. Break flat underneath. All right, so now we have our 90s versus catch technique. So he's squatted at our depth. So let's say we have a 6-yard in. He's squatted at 8. Can't roll it over. Can't regular square break it. He's going to snatch me right up. So it's similar to our jabs at the line of scrimmage. We want to work our best open field crossover is the way I like to say it to guys. Where am I in the progression? What is my depth is going to dictate the time I have. So if I'm number 3 in the progression, I have a lot of time to manipulate this cover defender. If I'm number 1 in the progression, I don't have as much time. Do I have a 12-yard route or a 6-yard route? If it's a 6-yard route, I probably have a little more time than if the depth is at 12. Understanding what's going on in the game. Like what is the shell of the coverage? What does it look like they're bringing? How many do we have in protection? All this stuff dictates the tempo that I can use when I run my route. That's why we encourage guys to be like football junkies, study, know your offense in and out. Know your offense in and out. Patient and sudden, we're pushing off the inside edge. We're transferring our weight from hip to hip. So here's Michael Thomas. He's working on Desmond Trufant, our number 3 in the trips here. Okay. Trufant's got both feet in the ground. Both feet in the ground. Michael Thomas speed cuts this, it's snatched. Michael Thomas breaks and square cuts this thing, it's snatched. Okay. He is going to give him something. So he gives him a little 1-2 to either freeze, 1-2, to freeze or move him. He freezes him and wins the route. So important, we spoke about this on our jabs. We're going to take a look at it in a second. When we execute this crossover, okay, I do not want to execute this move on his toes, okay? Now, we spoke about why we can't speed cut and why we can't square cut versus a guy who's got both feet in the ground. Here's Justin Jefferson, one of the best route runners in college football last year, trying to run a square in versus a guy squatted, both feet in the ground, and just gets snatched up. Okay? He's number 3 in the trips here. Now we'll take a look right now at Michael Thomas. Watch the space that he executes this move on the cover defender. He's right here, number 2 at the bottom of your screen. Slot at the bottom of your screen. Enough room here for his cover defender to miss without collision. Miss without collision. Okay? Cooper Kupp, number 2 in the trips to the top here. Okay? He's got about a 6-yard inbreaker. 6-yard inbreaker versus catch technique. So here's cover defender is squatted. He's going to get on him. Enough space here for his cover defender to miss without getting snatched up. This is 3rd down. This is a money down play. Okay? They're bringing 5. Rams have 5 in protection. Okay? It's cover 1. Little crossover, make them go opposite. So this is, we get a guy squatted at our depth. We have to move him. I can't roll it over. I can't. Now this is squatted, we'll say a little bit above our depth. Can't roll it over. Can't just snap one to it, square break it, because he's going to drive it. He's waiting for something. So now I got to get him off of his landmark. So we'll talk about the hitch, the comeback, and the curl, and then that should finish us up for the presentation. The hitch, so versus cushion, versus off, versus access. Attack mode, we're vertical until our depth. We work either a drop pop or a snap 1-2. It's really based on what the guys prefer to do. We're not going to overcoach the hitch. It's just attack vertical and sit it down. Ball should be out on time. The only way this gets covered is, as we mentioned previously, is if we provide an indicator. Versus press and it's locked on. So a lot of times hitches versus press get converted. We're saying it's locked. We have an inside fade. We have a corner over the top. There's some type of concept over the top of it. We're in attack mode. We're vertical until depth. We're either snapping or drop popping. And we are working a throw by, just the same throw by rules as on our 90s. So here it is versus access. Stephon Diggs at the bottom of your screen. He's going to attack. Drop, pop, ball. Okay? T.Y. Hilton. Attack, drop, pop, ball. Now we don't work back on hitches because for 2 reasons. If this thing's not on time, it's not getting thrown, first of all, unless it's scramble drill. Second of all, if I'm working back the quarterback, I'm going to end up catching this thing at 2. We like to stay here, and we'll either expand out, or if the ball doesn't come, we'll kind of lock this leg out almost like a jerk route and break back in based on what the rest of the concept looks like. But we will not continue working back here. Maybe we'll work 6 back to 5, but I'm not coming all the way downhill. It's not like a curl where I'm running out of it. And here's a different example. Like, this is not a drop pop. This is Godwin kind of sinking into his hips. You know, either are fine. Either are fine. And, okay, so here we have it versus press. So we spoke about the throw by. Humphreys does such a good job here dropping his weight that he doesn't even have to throw by. Vertical, 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 drop, pop, ball. We'll go back to that so you guys can see it one more time. Attack vertical, drop, pop, ball. Now here it is with the throw by. So now he's latched on. Arm comes latched, throw him by, get him off. Outside release, arm comes latched, throw him by, get him off. Okay, so curls, fun route to run versus off or cushion or access. Same thing, and I know this is repetitive, but it's really all the same. Like our vertical stem, we are in attack mode. We're vertical until our route depth. Snap down, weight drop. Some guys prefer to work a trigger step. Some guys will just suddenly drop their hips. Each are fine. It's based on what the guy prefers. Each receiver is different. We'll talk about both here. So here's Terrence Williams, bottom of your screen. Attack, drop, kind of run back out of the ball, right? Run back out to the ball. Everybody runs their curls a little differently on how they exit them. We like to run out because the ball should be on time. But here he is. Vertical, 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 drop, run out. T. Will is a body catcher. It is who he is. We'll watch it in full speed here. I like the way he attacks this inside leverage guy. Like we're attacking him tight. And I want him to have to flip this hip because of my vertical stem. I want him to have to flip this hip around because of my threat vertical. I don't want to get too wide in it because then there's a lot of space between us for him to cover. I want to attack tight to this outside shoulder. Flips his hip. Easy. The break point wins because it's a good break, but the vertical stem is really what wins it. Michael Gallup, is he at the bottom or the top here? At the top of your screen. Attack, attack, attack. Snap, 1, 2, 3, run out. Super important to show your guys here. This is a good clip. If Gallup squats here and he's not running out, watch where the DB ends up. So this Gallup right now is at the 39-yard line, okay? Gallup is sitting there waiting for the ball here. This thing is broken up easily. It might even be picked because look where the DB ends up. DB ends up at the 36. You understand the concept here of running out of your break point. And here's some old footage of the Broncos running some curls. First cushion. Attack. I really like how he threatens here, like he's expanding to get to shell the vertical. This is a bit of a deeper curl. Does a nice job. Attack, drop, run out. All right, so now we got press coverage, curl versus press. Okay, he's hipped at our depth. Big coaching point on curls versus press. Like we don't want to win the route by I don't want to be 3 steps ahead of this guy on a curl versus press because then it's going to be real hard to work back down my stem or back to the quarterback when he's really trailing hard. So if I do beat him off the ball, I'd want to work some type of change of tempo on my stem to let him kind of catch up before I reheat him. And that's something we could dive deeper in at a later date. But same thing, attack mode, vertical until snap down, throw by. So here's Marquise Goodwin. So same side release, we're not working a throw by Okay, and I'll explain why in a second. So I got an inside release on a curl. Now we're hipped, okay? Right now, if I don't provide an indicator, all this is who runs a curl better. Like, this is a race right now. Who runs the curl better, me or the DB? If I just keep my shoulder square, keep my hips square, and don't provide any indicator that a break is coming, it's who can get out of a curl better. He doesn't know where we're going. We do. We should win every time. So same side release on curl. It's attack drop. No indicator. Vertical, vertical, vertical. Vertical, 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 drop. Ball. Same concept here. Julio at the top of your screen. Inside release. Who runs the curl better? We do. We practice it. They don't. Same side release. Who runs the curl better? We do. Now this is more of a stop route. So that's a peak technique we didn't dive into. Slight peak, snap down, ball. So here's an example of a throw by, okay? So now I'm outside releasing on a curl route. Outside releasing on a curl route. Arms latched. So you guys have heard it a thousand times this presentation. Arms latched, throwing by, ball. Outside release on a curl route. Attack vertical. Arms latched, thrown by, run back to the ball. Presenting these tools for these guys, no matter what coverage contour they get, they have a way to win. No matter what situation they find themselves in, they have a way to win. Okay? There's a way to win on every route. There's a way to win on every route. This will be the last route we touch on today. Comebacks. Another really fun route. Really fun route. I will get to all the questions once we're done with this route. Curl doesn't know. Oh, I guess I kind of answered it in the thing. Curl doesn't always have to outside release. We just kind of spoke about it. If we inside release, we just have to make sure we don't get squeezed too much. We don't want to be splitting the hash of the numbers on a curl route. It just becomes who runs the drill better as long as we provide no indicator. Comebacks versus cushion versus access. Same thing, attack mode. If he gives us blind spot, take it. So if he gives us this near hip, we want to chase it. Vertical until our depth, and then snap down or weight drop. It's just sinking our hips and running out of it. So here's Marvin Harrison, top of your screen. Just attack vertical. He's got a bail. Take the blind spot, gives us the hip. Let's get in behind it. Let's get in behind the hip. Can't cover what you can't see. Can't cover what you can't see. Anytime somebody flips their hip, we're taking it. We're taking it. All right, so here we got comeback versus press or hip at depth. We don't, similar to the curl, we don't want to win this release by 3 steps. If we do, we're going to have to tempo. So the release we choose to use has to be something where he kind of is a little bit hipped. We could be in front a tiny bit, but we don't want to be 3 steps on this guy because then he's in a better position to cover our comeback than we are. We prefer outside release on comebacks. If you have to go inside, it's going to be a throw by to slip underneath. We prefer outside release. Possibly the best comeback of all time. As efficient as it gets. Snap, 1, 2, out. Now you'll see this peak technique with these guys a lot. It's okay when you're hipped. So look, if he's higher than us, the clip of Marvin Harrison, the first one, we don't like the peak tech here because the peak technique is just simulating that a ball might be coming soon. In what world of football are we getting a vertical ball when the cover defender is this high, right? Like it's not coming. So the peak technique is useless here. We're not putting this chin to shoulder looking for a football. We're just attacking, putting head down and running. Now when we're hipped, ball may be coming. Like why is this not a vertical route? There's nothing to tell this DB there's no vertical. So the peak is a viable option there. The one thing I'll say is use it with caution, because a lot of guys, when they work that, especially younger guys, when they work that peak technique, there's a significant loss in velocity in their vertical stem. Loss in velocity in their vertical stem tells the DB a break's coming. Now, I know I said this wasn't a break point to something really quick here. Well, here's Julio. This will be the last route. Here's Julio at the top of your screen. Now you're going to notice he gets a good amount of steps on his cover defender. He is going to throttle down a bit near the top without really changing his stride length. Just stops accelerating. It's very subtle. It's very subtle. Stops accelerating and then snaps it so the DB could kind of get a little tighter to his hip. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about, and this is something we can dive real deep in at a later date. Anybody wants to reach out to me and discuss it more, feel free, or I could get on and give another presentation, whatever coach wants. When we run these comebacks, like you're going to notice he drops and his shoulders are square. Hips are square. It provides no indicator I enter my break square. Well, right now the race has begun between the DB and the receiver. The DB knows a break's coming now because the hips they sank. Watch how Julio starts rotating to his break point now. His shoulders aren't square anymore. Because when my shoulders are square, I can only get this hip. My hips are square. I can only get that hip open so far. It's going to round, and I'm going to round my comeback. When I have my hips and shoulders turned, now I can get my hip open much easier, and I'm able to run downhill. And that's something I had picked up on from just watching a ton of guys, just watching a ton of film. But yeah, those are like a lot of the tools we use to separate. And that, I don't want to keep going over time. Coach, so we got a couple more minutes to dive into slant.
Yes, if you like to, we can.
Yeah, let's finish up with the slant thing, because slant's pretty universal route. So all right, so slant versus off, you're gonna see it again. Attack mode. Sorry. Oh man, I'm awful at drawing. Attack mode. Routes on air, right? Like this is no different than us in practice running slants versus no. He might as well not be here. This cover defender might as well not be here. We have a 3-step slant. He's at 8 and bailing. We're vertical until break point. Less is more. Okay. We see a lot of guys slant versus off. They give a lot of outside of the framework. They get a lot of head nod. That's all good and well when you're trying to create separation. The separation is here by alignment. Like I don't need to manipulate this guy with anything other than my vertical stem. There is 7, 8 yards of separation with body language bailing. Let's just stick the right foot in the ground and break off of it. I don't need to slam it and spend extra time on the ground. I don't need to give anything to the outside, because who am I? I'm not manipulating anybody. This is literally routes on air for us. Same thing here. Like just attack and break off your 3rd step. This is routes on air for us. We don't have to give much head. We don't have to give much foot. We don't have to give much hip. Attack, break to the slant. Single pressure step, less is more. Now, angle of departure is going to change based on offense. Some offenses like them really flat, almost like a speed in. Some offenses like them, but the route doesn't change. The break doesn't change. The way we approach it doesn't change. Here's an example. We talk about pre-snap, gather info, post-snap, confirm it. Pre-snap, this guy's low, but he's bailing, okay? And I like this clip a lot because you're going to see what we say, make everything look the same. Make everything look the same. So there's his first stride. So this is his second stride right here. Looks exactly the same as his third stride. Exactly the same as his third stride. Shoulders stay square, hips stay square. There's nothing to tell this DB that a break is coming. Hit play, breaks right to his slant. We treat bailing as cushion. We treat bailing as access. Okay? Slant versus outside leverage. So we like to work a single jab here to freeze or move or keep the defender outside. The most important part of this route is that we're going to reestablish our vertical step. Okay, a lot of guys will single jab, and then they'll just break flat to their slant, and the guy will just be on his back. We really want to avoid that. We want to jab and then push back vertical. And we're going to see a couple good clips of that. And then same thing, single pressure step to the slant. If he's hipped, we might have to separate a little bit, put more force on the ground. If he's not, less is more. So here's Odell at the top of your screen. Here comes his single jab. Now he moves the defender outside a slight bit. The defender's gonna take a slight step with his outside foot. Now Odell is going to reestablish his vertical step. Forces the DB to chase this way rather than hop on his back to the slant. Single pressure step. Now, we spoke about angle of departure here. It's a bit of a higher angle because of the coverage contour. The backer's buzzing with the flat. Okay. Single jab. Pressure step. Have to reestablish vertical step. Now, this is really eating up space before he hits a single. Bottom of your screen. Single jab. Shoulders square to the end zone. I am now a two-way threat. Vertical, vertical, slant. Doesn't slam his foot down. Just kind of almost rolls off of it. Less is more. Have to reestablish vertical. Now here's Sterling Shepard, top of your screen, same thing. This is a really good corner he's working against AJ Boya. Really good corner. Single jab, reestablish vertical, snap it off to the slant. This would be an example where I would prefer it a little bit more flat. Single jab, reestablish vert, snap it off to the slant. All right, final thing we're going to go over is the diamond release, okay? So this is just versus inside leverage or head up. Head up, you have multiple options. You can work any of them. Versus inside, we prefer to work the diamond. You can work any release that you would work here to win a vertical. Any release you would try and win a vertical on, you can work on a diamond release because that's what you're selling. You're selling a vertical. We say attack in V's. Diamonds are 2 V's, essentially, when you draw them on paper at least. So we want to attack in V's here. I don't want to loop around because I'm not threatening with this much width. I'm not threatening with this much width. Okay, so I want to attack in V's. Have to threaten vertical. We spoke about it. Once he flips that hip, once he flips this hip to run with the vert, we win the route. I get to slip underneath him, and we're prepared for combat. Throw-by rules may apply here. So here's Amari Cooper. He's going to attack vertical. He's going to attack vertical, and he is going to snap underneath, okay? So once we get him to flip this hip here, we win the route. We use a rule of thumb. Sometimes it's 3 to the slant. I like to tell our guys, once we get him to flip, you have the green light to go. So if let's say he flips his hip right now, like I could put my left foot in the ground and break off my right underneath him. Rule of thumb is usually 3 though. Same concept here. He's going to eat up space just like he would on a vertical. There's nothing to tell this corner. This is actually a different rep. It looks exactly the same. There's nothing to tell this corner that he's not going right now. Slicks his foot in the ground, snaps it underneath. Once we get him here, it's over. The only way we do that is by selling vertical. And then here's another rep of the diamond. We got 2 more to go over. Here's Kendrick Bourne, top of your screen. Now we saw Amari Cooper work the exit of the diamond with a single pressure step, where it kind of rolled out of it. He violent step. You're going to see Kendrick Bourne work a two-step exit here. And to me, it's really just based on when we declare that it's time to go. Once he flips his hip, we have that green light. Well, his hip is flipped right now. And Bourne says, I'm out. So his right foot strikes, then he drives off his left. Okay, so the timing of the hip flip, to me, determines what foot we start our break on. The other thing also is angle of departure. It's really hard to roll off one foot and get completely flat. So we might two-step it if we have to get very flat. If I have more leniency, I can one-step and gain a little bit of ground. But you'll see him kind of drop on his right and break off his left here because of how prematurely this corner flips his hip. But these are full strides. These are full strides. And like we said, he's not attacking in use. He's not going out here bullshitting. He's on a straight line. Have to sell vertical. And here's the last one. So he came to balance here, to a speed release, to a diamond. Have to sell vertical. Hips flipped, it's over. All right, coach. I apologize for the internet disconnecting there.
No problems, coach. It worked out very, very well, and you presented so many informations. I think every coach who listened today could easily implement into their own practice plans. And you really, really did a great job, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I have some drills of majority of this stuff. For anybody that wants them, just shoot me a message on Twitter, and I'll get them to you this week. For coach you as well. I definitely have some diamonds. I have a bunch of drills on my computer that I can send over for sure. So never hesitate to reach out to me, guys. I really appreciate you having me on, coach. Yeah, cool. I do have an email. I'll type it in the chat right now. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I really appreciate your time and having me on.
Yeah, coach. Thank you very much. And maybe if time, we can do another clinic. You talked about this, and I think a lot of.
For sure. We could do the breakpoint one. For sure. We'll talk, coach.
Yeah, that's great. There's a lot to.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, guys. Stay safe. Hopefully, football's back in Germany soon.
Thank you very much, coach. Goodbye.
Have a good night, guys.
Bye.